Fantastic. All right, well, thank you all for joining us today. Some quick introductions before we get started. My name is Michaela Bean. I am a student conduct officer with the university here with the Office of Student Rights and Responsibilities. The reason that my office has partnered with the library here today is that my office oversees student conduct, and that includes academic misconduct. And the most frequent issue of academic misconduct my office sees is plagiarism, which often comes as a result of people not understanding how to properly cite their sources. So that's kind of how I fit into today's presentation.
And my name is Bryant Moore. I am the first year experienced librarian here at Texas A&M University San Antonio. And we have a lot of resources that will help you with avoiding plagiarism, and we're going to cover some of those today. And we are able to help with other departments on campus with some citation help, and we're going to touch on those as well today.
If we want to go to the next slide, we can review our learning objectives. Okay, so our hopes today is that students are going to become knowledgeable of different citation styles, including ones they may not have been aware of existed. You're going to get to practice citing a journal article, a book, and a website. And you're going to learn about additional university resources, specifically within the university library, that are going to help you avoid plagiarism in the future. So before we go on to the next slide, I do want to take a little poll really quickly just to see what you all are currently using. So the poll should have popped up. So we've got, which of the following citation styles have you used in your coursework? That can be select all that apply. And then which of the following citation styles do you use most frequently? So if you all can go ahead and complete that poll and let us know. Okay, Bryant, so we have APA and MLA, with MLA being used the most frequently. Thank you so much for that. That's going to be very helpful as we move forward, so we can make sure that we spend most of our time reviewing those ones that you all are currently using. And we may then move a little quickly over the other ones that we'll be going over today. All right, Bryant.
All right, so we have a short...
Bryant, there you go, thank you. It's like I'm seeing a black screen.
So we have a short video about why citations matter. And we're gonna play that. And
meet Madison Kimball. She's just finished a research paper on why some dogs like water and some don't.
I love all things cute.
But before she turns her paper in, she has one more thing to do. Build a reference list with all her sources to include with her research paper.
And I hate all things citations and reference lists. It doesn't even boost up my word count.
But what Madison doesn't understand is that citations actually do matter, both in the text of your paper and in a comprehensive reference list.
Why?
I'll show you.
Whoa, hey, how are you doing that?
Citations are a crucial part of what makes a successful research paper. Other important parts include your own original ideas and the facts that you've gathered. Everyone needs help on their journey in developing a solid paper, and when you get that help from a citable source, citations are how you give credit where credit is due.
Yeah, I suppose.
Citations not only show your professors the path you took to reach your conclusions, but you'll also have a handy list to show you've worked hard to find sources that shape what you've written. It's like a roadmap to your paper, one that your professor will be happy he or she can follow. Madison, you've outdone yourself. I'm pleased with your argument and the factual evidence in support of your research on why dogs do and do not like water, as well as the reference list that you've provided for me to follow along. And A on the research paper and an A+ on citations. Yes! Good.
Wait, so I'll automatically get an A+ if I include citations in my research paper?
Well, no.
Well, some of the examples you provided only benefit other people, like my professors. What's in it for me?
For one, using citations means you'll avoid the legal and monetary repercussions of plagiarism should an author take legal action against you. Plus, you'll hurt your academic reputation.
Oh.
Anyway, just make sure the sources you are using are reputable ones. These include newspapers, research journals, online library databases, and books.
Well, obviously, everyone knows that.
Less credible sources are Wikipedia, Google, personal blogs, and YouTube. Sure, dog videos are entertaining, but they're rarely something you should cite, even if dogs are the topic of your paper, like in Madison's case.
Fine. YouTube video deleted. I did that! I mean, that's my reference list.
The details in your reference list can be more than just the author, title, or date of a book. All of this information is detailed in citation style guides, which are like detailed instruction manuals for reference lists. Your professor may want you to include more information, so make sure you know which citation style guide he or she prefers.
Already ahead of you, omnipresent narrator.
My name's Will.
Yeah, that's nice.
And in addition to a reference list, a successful research paper also uses citations within the paper itself.
Oh, well, I forgot about those. Wait, why do I have to include in-text citations if I already have everything in a list at the end of the paper? It's like I'm doing double the work. And without even a huge boost of my word count.
The two types of citations serve two different purposes. The reference list at the end of the paper presents a summary of what you used. It's like the big picture of the research paper. And in-text citations are useful for marking what information you used and where you used it.
Okay, I'm convinced.
Overall, the idea is to show your professors that you've used these good sources as a springboard to form your own original and supported thoughts. You're essentially building upon the research of the scholars who came before you, and citing those sources acknowledges the connection between your ideas and the knowledge of past scholars.
Okay, so is that it?
That's it. That's why citations matter, in a nutshell.
Well, great, because then that means I'm officially done with my research paper. Now it's time to get back to more dog videos.
I don't suppose another one would hurt. Meet Madison Kimball. She's just
All right, so that again kind of explains, I think, my office's role in this presentation today, just to show that citations do have a purpose. It's not just something extra for you to do, right? There is a purpose behind them. So today we're going to review APA, MLA, and ASA citation styles. And seeing as you all use MLA most frequently, we'll go ahead and spend more of our time focusing on those, but we do want to make sure that you're aware of APA and ASA, as we've seen that those are frequently used here at A&M San Antonio. So first and foremost, if you're ever looking for those citation style guides, those handbooks, this is what they look like.
And we have some at the library, and we're going to go over those and where you can access those in a few minutes.
Absolutely. So no matter what style you're being asked to utilize in your coursework, each style, each citation involves the same couple components. First and foremost, the author, who wrote it. The second thing you want to look at, or I guess the first thing you would want, is actually the title, right? The title, the author, those are both very straightforward. The next thing you want to look at is the date. So there's generally two different dates depending on what source you're looking at. The first is going to be the date of publication. So if that's a book, if that's a journal article, if that's a website, when was the information published, right? That's going to help us understand how relevant it is. Oftentimes, if you're doing a research paper, faculty may say, you know, if it's more than 10 years old, you need to find something a little more recent to make sure that you have the most up-to-date information. The second one, often dealing with websites, or even if you find a journal online, is the date of retrieval. So when did you actually find the information online? And then the final item, which is where it gets a little more complicated, depending on what source you're looking at. It may have all or none of these components. It's going to be place of publication. So oftentimes that's going to be city and or state. Who is the publisher? This is especially important for books and journals. The title of the container. So the container generally is going to be referring to journals, right? So if you found a journal article called Voting in the United States 2020, but it was within, you know, that's the title of the article, but the larger journal was called Voting Monthly, that would be the title of your container. DOI refers to journal articles. URL is obviously going to be websites, and then other contributors. So again, depending on your source, that could be editors, additional publishers. In some cases, it could be less contributing authors. But like I said, with some, especially with those other contributors, it can get a little sticky. And what we're going to circle back to throughout all of this is making sure that when you're in one of those sticky situations where you're looking at a source and you're not sure exactly how to cite it, to look back at your reference guides, to look at that MLA style book. Anything to add here, Bryant?
Nope, I think you covered all of those. Like we said, we're going to touch on some all of these throughout the presentation. And I guess something on the retrieval, all articles will not have a DOI. It depends on the year of publication. So all articles will not have that. But we're going to move on.
Yeah, and Bryant, you can go ahead and talk about the order of these components.
So the order of components. For the order, they're going to be different depending on the citation style that you use. As you can see here, APA has the author, the year of publication, the title of the container, and the number, which includes the volume or numbers, which will, and visions and editions, well, visions will include the editions, the publisher, the date of access, if it's applicable, and the location, the page numbers, the paragraphs, UIL, and DOI. And for MLA, some of them are pretty much the same, but the order may not be in the same order. So you have your author, your title of containers, other contributors. They can include translators or editors, the version, numbers, publisher, publication date, location, pages, paragraph, UILs, or DIO, and date of access. And it's pretty much the same for ASA, but the thing that's a little tricky here may be some issues and issue numbers and things like that. But I know most of y'all use APA or MLA, so we'll stick with those two right now.
Right. So then really quickly, the in-text citation. We're not going to spend too much time on this today, but we do want to highlight just the few differences. So kind of the most interesting thing for me is that MLA does not require you to include year of publication in your in-text citation. So for APA and ASA, you need to include the last name of your author, year of publication, and page number. Pay attention to very small details. So if you're using APA, you do want to have a comma after year of publication, a P a period, and then the actual page numbers that you're working with. For MLA, all you need is last name, no comma, no period, no anything like that, just last name and page numbers. Sometimes this may just be a single page number, like I found this on page 13. Other times it'll be a range. So for example, if you're paraphrasing or summarizing something, it may be page 13 to 17. No matter what citation style you're using, if it's a range, you're going to put a hyphen between the numbers. So again, this is something very simple but important to know. I'll just say for myself, I had a few times in graduate school where I had the incorrect title for my reference list page and some faculty took some points off. So just good to know, as you all most frequently use MLA, the title of that reference list should be Works Cited. If you find that you're using APA for a class or ASA, the title will be References.
And again, sorry.
No, I want to share that towards the end of this presentation, we are going to share a resource with you that includes some example papers for each of these styles, which should make it much easier and very manageable for you all to execute this in your coursework. And I don't want you to feel like you have to memorize everything we're telling you today.
And again, consult your style guide manuals, because other citation styles will use like biographies for their reference list instead of reference list of works cited. So it depends on what style you're using for the title of those reference lists as well. You can see for authors' names can be different when you are using a reference list as well. As you can see, for MLA, you have your full name, MLA and ASA. In this case, you have your full name. With APA, you just have Douglas for this example, and his initials. So those are different things to point out when you're referring to authors as well. And like Michaela mentioned earlier, if you have more than one author, that does play a big role in how you cite it, both in your in-text citations. That's all that I have on that.
Okay, so to kick us off, we did want to show an example of a citation. So like we said, all of those components tend to be the same, but what really I think separates these citation styles is the order of those components, okay? So for this example, we took this year's common read, Vote for Us, How to Take Back Our Elections and Change the Future of Voting by Joshua Douglas for this example. So let's go ahead and jump to the middle, MLA, as you all use that most frequently. Again, you can see that we're going to utilize the full name with the exception of the middle name. We do want that middle initial if it's available, okay? And for each of these components we talk about, that's what I want you to remember is if it's available. If a component is not available, for some things, you may need to input other information. For example, if there is not a date of publication, what you're going to put instead of, for example, 2019 would be N period D period to stand for no date. But other items, if it's not there, it's generally okay to just omit it. But going back to our example and going back, if you look at this as a focus of books in general, books are going to have a publisher, which for us is Prometheus Books. Books are going to have a date of publication that's generally fairly easy to find. For this, it's 2019, okay? The other thing I want you to look at between MLA and APA is how we capitalize that title. For MLA, I believe this is called sentence case, where each of what my grade school teachers would say are important words are capitalized. So what that's going to be is the start of a title or, following a colon or a hyphen, those are always going to be capitalized. And then it's any words that are 4 letters or more. And always making sure to lowercase. I know there's a type of speech for this that I'm not remembering, but words like to, the, and, of, or, for, those things, those are always going to be lowercase. In contrast with APA, all you're going to capitalize is those very first words. So the very first word of a title, and then the very first word of, a subtitle. So something following a colon, a hyphen, something like that. ASA is kind of a little mishmash of APA and MLA, right? So we've got the full name, the year, and again, small formatting changes where APA you need the year to be in parentheses, ASA you do not. You can see that the title of the book is identical to how we listed in MLA. And then you can see that there's an additional component here for ASA. They want to know the location of publication, which is Amherst, New York. MLA and APA, they didn't want that. They don't care that it was published in New York. All they care is that it was published by Prometheus Books. Okay, and then under each one, again, you can see that example of what an in-text citation would look like. So again, for APA, it has that P to designate that you found it on page 25. MLA, we just want the last name and the page number. ASA, very interestingly, has following the year, it has a colon and the page number. So this is a very just brief example of what a book citation would look like. Bryant, do you have anything to add? Because I believe after this, we're going to move pretty quickly into some real examples. So if you're participating with us today, I'm going to encourage you to go ahead and grab a piece of paper and a pencil, or if you work better on the computer, that's fine. Just go ahead and open another window.
So first, we have a citation for a book. First, we're going to cover how to find a book. So on the screen now, I have our library's catalog. And to get to find a book, you have this gray and purplish box in the middle of the library's catalog. You can search for that book there. So I'm going to stick with voting. And there's a book I want called Give Us the Ballot. I can type that in the search box and hit search. And you can see that book comes up first on our search results list because we have it. It'll tell you if it's available, and it'll tell you our location, Texas A&M San Antonio, which campus, and a call number. So I want to go ahead and click on this real quick. And you can see it gives you this option to cite here. So be careful with that option because the format may not always be the same. So be sure, like we said before, to check it against your style guides. So we have a little example here to apply what you learned for a book. So I have a citation listed here, and we want you to pick one of the 3 MLA, APA, or ASA, and cite the following book. You can write that on your paper, you can type it in Word on your computer screen, and we want you to provide the reference and in-text for the following book. So we'll give you a minute or so to do that. All right, so we have the citations for a book. We have APA, we have a reference citation, of course. So you have the last name and the first initial of the author's first name, or the first letter of the author's first name, your date, your book title, your publisher, and that will be for your reference list. And for in-text, you have your author's last name, your year, and your page number. And then for MLA, it's pretty similar, but besides for MLA, for the in-text, you do not need a comma or the year for your in-text citation for the page numbers. The next one is a journal. And for journals, for the library's databases, you'll be able to find journals there. We have, I'm back at the library's website. So there's several ways to find journals. One is through our database A to Z. And there's a list of 318 journals listed here. So I'm going to go to Academic Search Complete. And you can see Academic Search Complete is different from Google. So with this database, I'm going to enter some search terms. I'm going to enter voting to stick voting behaviors to stick with our theme on voting. And then I'm going to do college students. And I want to find something on the effects voting behaviors have on college students. So I'm going to hit peer review, and we'll see we get a couple of articles in our search results list. So the partisan battle over college student voting is one that I selected for us to do a citation over, and we'll get there in a few minutes. You can see several things. There's a citation link under tools. So if you click on that link, you'll get different citation styles here. And we like to caution our students. These citation styles, these citations, the information is here, but the information may not be in the right order, such as what we had with our example earlier. So be sure if you watch out for these and check your citations against a style manual when you use these citation formats in our databases. And even a lot of people use citation machine resources as well. Check those against your style guides because the format, the information may not be in the correct order. So we have a journal for you to practice citing. So we just want you to do the reference citation for this journal. So you can see that all the components of the journal are here. And this will be a little tricky once you get to the authors, but we want you to practice that. And if you have any questions, you can always chime in or type those in the chat box. So if you have a sheet of paper, your Word document open, I know it's going to be pretty lengthy, but
I have a question in the chat, and it's a really great one. It says, when there are multiple authors, do we list them alphabetically? Brian?
yes, so it's usually in alphabetical order by last name, at least for the first author, I know for APA. But I will have to check a more definitely answer for the other two styles. And when you do your reference list, your authors must be by last name. I know that's the case for APA. But when you put them in order in your reference list or your works cited, they should be in alphabetical order.
Yes.
And some of these citation styles require what we call hanging indentions. So we'll go ahead and show you the example. as you can see, for APA, we got your last name of the author, your first name, the initial, and we have the year, we have the article title, and then we have the subtitle with a colon in between. And then we have your journal title and your volume and your issue and your page number. Did you want to tell them the difference between MLA, what you were talking about earlier, Michaela?
Yeah, absolutely. So MLA is interesting when it comes to multiple authors. APA and ASA always want you, especially in your works cited page, to list all of the authors. They want to know all of the contributors. To a certain point, I think when it gets out of hand, there's 8 or 10 authors is when they shorten it. For MLA, it's any more than 2. If there are 2 authors, they'll have you list both of them, and they'll just put an and between the 2 names. But if there's more than 2, they shorten it to just the very first author listed, which is, again, almost always going to be in alphabetical order. And then they'll do, as you see here, comma, et al., which just means there's multiple authors. So I think that's always very interesting, that difference there, that MLA has short patience for multiple authors. If it's 2, it's cool. If it's more than 2, they shorten it automatically. So again, you can see there in MLA and ASA that sentence case capitalization, where almost every word is capitalized. Again, both of them have their container there, or their journal title, Social Science Quarterly, volume number, date, and page numbers.
And in your in-text, I know for APA, you will have, if you have more than a certain number of authors, I think it's 8, I want to say 8, but I will have to double check that. You will use at L2. It should be the same for the new format, but that's something to watch out for. Again, check your style guides when you have more than one author, and if you have any questions, go back to your style guide.
Yes.
All right, so we have a website here. For the sake of going to the website, I'm just going to have you cite it. So select one of the 3 styles to provide a reference citation or a works cited citation for the following page of a website.
For the sake of this exercise, let's say that we accessed the website today, October 13th, 2020.
Yes.
Some things you may be asking yourselves, and some things I want to call attention to, is that there's no author, right? There's not like a John Smith here, and there's no published date. So think a little bit about going through that list of order of how you list things, how you might do this.
And especially with a lot of companies and organizations, you will find that there's no author. So that's one of the reasons that I selected this one. And we get that question a lot.
I've had people call me asking how to cite the Student Rights and Responsibilities website or the Student Code of Conduct. So it does happen frequently that there's no author listed.
So we'll give you another couple of seconds. All right, so you can see that we have the Bexar County, well, I put that twice, it should be Bexar County Elections Department as the organization. And then you will have the title of the website, which on the Bexar County Elections website, there's a section for elected officials, and it lists the elected officials. So if you use the Bexar County's website and you're writing or doing a presentation and you use the elected officials and you need to cite the information, you will have to cite that page. And then for APA, you will have the website listed at the end. And one of the difference for MLA is the page is in parentheses. Did you have anything to point out, Makila?
Not on this particular example, but just speaking of websites in general. So, for example, I said I get calls about how do I cite the Student Rights and Responsibilities website. And so I want to add just on that note, maybe you're doing an assignment on the university and you find information on the library's webpage or the English department webpage or something like that. There's one extra step instead of for the organization, right? Because there's maybe not necessarily an author. Instead of just saying Texas A&M University San Antonio, you would actually start by putting, and I'll speak specifically to MLA, in italics, you would start with what department you're looking at. So maybe it was English department. You would have that in italics, put a period, and then say Texas A&M University San Antonio, just to give a little bit more context. Because again, we want to remember the purposes of citing your sources and having a reference list. Number one, it's to show that, to give credit to people who have done the work before you, right? But it's also so, hey, I saw that you wrote about this and I thought it was really interesting. I want to learn more. It gives people that avenue to do so, to go and look at where you learned from to expand their own knowledge. So again, we've said it 100 times already, always look at your style guide, but there's oftentimes ways to add just a little bit more information to make that search a little bit easier for your readers.
And to point this out, Citation Styles are updated, manuals are updated. I know last year, at the end of last year, they updated APA. So that's something to watch out for. They are updated every so often because APA used to have retrieved from when I was in college, but now it doesn't seem like going back to the new edition, it's not there, doesn't need retrieve from. So
we're running low on time, so I am going to ask that we move forward just to give you all as much information as we can. But that's a great note. If your faculty member wants you to use APA editions, like 7th edition, don't go look at the 6th edition and think it'll be okay. Those changes are very important.
So here's some library resources that we have. These can be found on the library's website. Once again, we have style and formatting help for the different styles that we covered today and a lot of other styles. And we have citation style guides, which can be found under research help and go into citation styles. And you can always schedule an appointment with your subject librarians, and we can go over how to find information and point out different citation styles information for your research. We have a tool called Academic Tools for the Research Process. This is a series of tutorials that go over different style guides, and they provide a general overview of research process and writing styles. And again, you can schedule an appointment for more information on those, going through those academic tools for research processes and the different information that we have on citation styles. And those appointments will be virtual because of COVID-19. And we have some other resources for you. We have the tutoring center. They can help you as well. And the writing center is a big help when it comes to citation styles. And you can always talk to your academic success coaches, and they can help you to give you other resources and lead you to the right resources on campus for avoiding plagiarism and doing your practicing academic integrity, because we do take it seriously here on our campus.
Yes, and if I can speak on the Writing Center really quickly, they do have two options right now for virtual assistance. One is going to be an appointment that you show up to virtually and they go over your paper with you. But they also have the option of, you submitting a draft and then being able to provide feedback by kind of marking up that draft. So for example, if you're working, if normal business hours don't work for you, they do have that other option as well.
All right, do y'all have any questions for us? You can unmute yourself or type those questions in the chat box. I think we have about 2 minutes.
Is there a way that I'm able to obtain the presentation slides? That way I'm able to look over them when I work on future citations. I cannot stress enough, use your citation style guide, use those resources that we're going to send you all. No one is ever expected, I think, to have these things memorized. PhD students, your faculty, everyone is always using a citation style guide to make sure that they're doing it properly. And like we said, we're on the 6th or 7th edition of some of these styles, so they are evolving, so it's okay if you don't know everything.
And you're not going to remember all this stuff, like we said before. It can be a pain in the butt to go in and type out all these things, and be sure to double check if you do copy and paste those things in.
Copy paste can be a great tool, and those little citation buttons on the in academic search complete and stuff can be great tools, but it's always important to triple check everything yourself because the computer is not always correct. That is 3 o'clock. So Brian, if you can go ahead and skip to the end to show our contact info. I'm okay to hang out a little longer and answer some more questions. But I want to make sure you all have our contact information if you have any questions. Do you recommend using Citation Machine? Yeah, I think Citation Machine, just like those other, clickable tools, great tools. And oftentimes they can be really great assistants. But again, it's important to check things yourself. One of the things I see errors with most frequently is those capitalizations. Yes. So for example, on the partisan battle over college, you can see there in that tab that Bryant has that all of those words are capitalized. So no matter what style you ask it to cite, more than likely than not, all of those words are still going to be capitalized. So it's important to go back and, change those capitalizations. Oftentimes with Citation Machine, it fails to italicize some items when it should be. So yeah, I think Citation Machine is another great tool, great resource, but at the end of the day, computers make mistakes and you always need to take that editing eye to it. But great tool to kind of help you gather that information. I've noticed it's super helpful, especially with websites, to kind of try to find that, those publication dates, and it'll go ahead and save the date you accessed it if you're using Citation Machine as you're writing your paper.
That is a good question, though.
Yeah, and a note on websites and keeping track of the date you accessed it. That's very important because websites are changing all the time. It's super easy for me to go in and update the Student Rights and Responsibilities website. So if you accessed it 2 weeks ago and then someone goes to check it today and maybe it doesn't say exactly what you said it did, that date of access can help explain that discrepancy, right? Whereas if you don't have that, what instead it may convey to whoever's reading is that maybe you're not being 100% truthful. So that date of access can actually kind of help save you in that instance and kind of help explain any changes that may have happened, if that makes sense.